Hi, my name is Alex. Today I'm going to show you how to take apart the pure juicer. I have already previously removed the hub. What you do is you have to loosen the 3 screws that we have here, 3 hex screws, and then pry off the hub. It's not easy to pry it off, but if you keep pulling on it, eventually it will come off. You pull on this and this is the hub. This will come out. You'll be able to see the bearing, and underneath the bearing is a seal that looks like this. I'll remove the plate. We're going to remove this top cover with some tape. We lift it. And now we're going to remove, there's a locking screw for this handle that we're going to loosen so we can pull the handle off. And we're going to remove 6 screws on the top. We're going to loosen them and remove them. Okay, now we need to remove the screws on the bottom of the machine. We have to place it on the outer edge of the counter so that we can reach underneath to remove the screws. It's enough. The switch screws are removed. We can remove also the belt cover screws. Can remove the belt. Okay, I removed the cover from the pure juicer. Now, if you need to do work on the ball bearings of the motor, because they're very noisy, we would need to remove the 4 bottom screws so this whole piece comes off, and then we can separate the motor from these 2 structures. Okay, I'm going to place the machine on its side so that I can access the screws on the bottom. Basically, there's 4 screws that retain these 2 pieces that hold the motor. So I'm going to loosen those. Okay, to put the machine back on its base, you gotta be careful. Okay. Now this structure is loose. You gotta be very careful not to put any pressure on the hose here. Now what we want to do is we want to remove the 4 hex screws on the front structure, and there's another 4 on the back. And once you do that, you disconnect the connector, the power connector to the motor, and your motor should be free so you can open it up, uncover it, and remove the bearings. I've removed the 4 hex screws in the front and the 4 hex screws in the back, and I've unplugged the power plug to the motor. Now I'm going to put my hand underneath the motor and I'm going to remove this plate, which is a structure, and I'm going to remove this, and the motor's out. Okay, if we want to replace the bearings on the motor because they sound like a grinding noise, very loud grinding noise when the motor's running, once you have the motor out, you need to mark here with I marked it with a hacksaw blade, the black casing plus the outer cover. On the front and on the rear, I did some marks so that I can line up these covers in case they move. Okay, to get into the motor, you would need to loosen these 4 screws, and once you do that, you still have the pulley, belt pulley still on. You would have to loosen the screw here, and once you do that, once you have these 4 long screws loose, if you pull on the shaft and you do a hammering motion, the pulley will eventually slide off. You know, once you pull on the shaft several times and in and out, basically hammering the pulley off, it will slide off. What I would like to explain is that if you're going to take the motor apart to replace the bearings, I did that this morning, so I'm not going to take it apart again, but basically what you're going to find is that once you pull the shaft off, most likely the 2 bearings, the rear and the front bearing, are going to be stuck to the shaft. I had to take it to a machine shop to have them pulled off. And once they did that, then I had the new bearings on hand, and it was very simple to reinstall. When you're ready to install the bearings, you're going to need the anti-seize assembly lubricant, which you're going to place on the outer edge of the bearings. And I went ahead and placed also inside the case where they're going to sit, so that this lubricant, what it does is it keeps it from locking. Next time you need to remove the bearings, it'll come out real easy. Okay, I'm going to assemble the machine. Very important that you remember to run this wire through the slot where the safety switch is for the grinder. You got to run it through the same slot. You're placing the front structure back on, that this wire goes into the groove so that it will not get pressed against the metal. Okay, you will know that the wire is in the groove and it's placed correctly because it's not locked. You can move it up and down or in and out. That way you know that it hasn't been pressed against the metal, but it's in the groove. Okay, I just realized that when I was explaining how to disassemble the structure here so you can remove the motor, this was already loose. You got to make sure that when you're disassembling, you remove this plug, and then once you're assembling, that you put it back in place. Also, another quick note is I realized that these 2 rear bottom screws are not really necessary to have them removed. You can actually remove the motor just by removing the 2 bottom front screws of this structure.